All right, here we are, Dave Smith with Gem News Network. We're here in Tucson, and I am really jazzed to have a great guy that has absolutely, he's been a mentor to me. He's been a mentor to tons of people. Roger Dery, he does it all. He teaches, he cuts, he mines, he gives. He has a great charity we're going to talk about, Gem Legacy, and just a fabulous guy. So, Roger, first thing I want to ask you is just start with like where you were born and a little bit about you.
I grew up in Detroit. My dad was an engineer for Chrysler, so great place to be, and spent first 17 years at home with family, and then my parents moved to Ohio, and I ended up going off to community college and stayed local, and I ended up working in building trades. I learned how to be a welder and did welding for 10 years, and then I dove off into the gem world. That was kind of a...
So pretty young, pretty early.
Yeah, I think mentally I made the conversion when I was probably 28. I thought, I'm looking around at guys that are, 55 or 60, and they all have like broken parts on their bodies, they're worn out. And I thought that's going to be me if I just keep hanging around here another 30 or so years. So I looked for a way out, and a friend of mine convinced me that we should get involved with gemstones, and that's kind of what happened. So we, 1981, we formed a company and went to India and Sri Lanka to do some buying. That was our first major out-of-country trip, and that was fun. It was interesting, and we certainly learned a lot. And good thing we made all of our mistakes, or most of our mistakes, in that first year, because you do make a lot of mistakes when you start any business.
Yep.
And then we moved on from there, and at some point in time, he said to me, I just don't want to be hanging around with the winters in Michigan, so don't take it personal, but I'm going to move to Phoenix. I'm going to start another business there, and we kind of separated our goods, and we kind of went our own way. And then the next year I met my wife, who had a background in marketing and public relations. I thought, well, I need help there. Wow. So it was a great way to step into that. And so she joined forces. We got married in 1985, and it's been great ever since. And unfortunately, she's not with me here at this particular Tucson, but she's been probably 20 different sessions over the past 40-some years. But the gem business, they just fell in love with it. And so we were buying and selling gems up until 2001, buying and selling other people's gems. And then in 2001, I hired a guy in North Carolina to teach me. So I went and spent 5 weeks with him, and that I just really turned the corner and just fell in love with the whole gem cutting process. Because David, when I first watched somebody cutting gems in the early 80s, I'm thinking, there is no way I'm doing that. There's way too much patience, way too much personal, like you got to like stick with something, and the super precision that was required. I thought, I can't live that life. I don't. It seemed like over stressful, and anyway, I got over it. So thankfully, and here we are.
That's so cool that you got into it so young. I didn't facet. There was a guy, Billy Bob, if you ever knew Billy Bob.
I knew him.
That built I forget what they call that machine, the Beast, or this massive thing.
Yes.
And he would come into my shop and he'd say, Davey, you should come take my faceting class. But I thought there was a lot of math. And so I was intimidated by that. And then when I finally took the class, I'm like, I just wasted 20 years being afraid. Kind of the same attitude you had. But now let's go back to Motor City. So do you like Motown? What's your favorite music?
Well, I like all kinds of music, but I think even though I came from Motown, and there's this whole thing about you should appreciate what you have right there, I don't know, I like popular music that you hear on the radio or whatever you're listening, podcasts or whatever. But I think I kind of gravitate through a whole range of different types of music. I don't stick with just one. But
sure,
yeah,
I'm the same way. But what's your favorite band? Do you have like one that you like go to their concerts and like?
No, that's not me.
Oh wow,
I'm not a concert going guy.
I'm a Rolling Stones guy. Since 78, 79.
Well, I did really love the Beatles in the early days. In fact, I had a ticket to go to a concert when they came to Detroit.
Oh, get out!
I was a teenager, and I couldn't get anybody to drive me down there. I only had one ticket.
Brutal.
So I took the bus.
But you went to the concert.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
A long time ago.
Yeah,
it was fun,
awesome.
but it's not good to go to a concert alone.
Yeah.
Plus the places I had to walk through in the city of Detroit probably weren't great at the time. Probably not my best move. But I had fun, and it was a great experience. So
that led you to having that spirit that says, I'm going to go to Sri Lanka, I'm going to go to India, where I find there's a lot of young people that are kind of reticent to go somewhere they've never been. I mean, now it's a different deal because everything's on Instagram and, go to this beach and it's all laid out for you.
And they make it look so easy.
Right.
But international travel in of itself, if you're going to Europe, like you can get by in any situation there because they understand Americans and what we kind of have expectations for, and you understand them because you probably did research before you went there to figure it out. So like as an example, we went to Prague about 2 years ago just to go to Prague.
Oh, love it.
And we spent 5 days there, and it was just great to see an exciting city that wasn't bombed out during World War II.
Yeah.
That's just an example, but I think the thing about travel, people do become fearful about doing that because they don't know the total outcome. So if you're going to be buying, unlike on a buying trip for gems, I guarantee you won't know the outcome. You can't predict what's going to happen.
Yep.
So you need to have a sense of not being averse to risk.
And flexibility.
Yeah.
Because you're going to miss a train, you're going to be searching for a bathroom, all kinds of stuff.
Well, there is that.
You may take your Imodium.
Yes.
That's one, I learned that one in Bangladesh. So you're talking about Prague, and that makes me think about, I've done business in the Czech Republic for decades. And that's the area, that Bohemia, Germany, Poland, that's where the origins of the birthstone of the month came from, about 500 years ago. Because before that, it was all horoscope and tribe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's that area of the world, Bohemian, Germany, Poland, they're marketers, and that's really gemstone of the month on your birth month. That's a marketing tool.
It is.
So now these days, you still travel to Sri Lanka a ton, right?
I've been 18 times.
Wow.
So yeah, we're trying to go twice a year now. It's not just me because I have my daughter involved in the company and her husband, who's also a gem cutter and owns a tanzanite mine with his family.
Right. In
Tanzania. So what we're doing now is that Ginger and I will make one trip, and then 6 months later, roughly, Rachel and Bjorn will take a separate trip because I need them to acclimate to the buying process.
Sure.
And they have to live with their decisions. When you're
and
doing,
they're taking the business over, right?
they are. We're in probably a 3 or 4 year process of kind of walking through it so that it becomes their company, not Roger. Even though my name's on it, Roger Dery Gem Design, but I think we really want it to be them making the decisions, living with the decisions, because sometimes
you got to make those mistakes.
they're going to happen.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, otherwise you don't learn.
Well, and I'm, something you said earlier really resonated with me is about like how when you're young making those mistakes. When I started out, I started my business with $7,000, and if I made a 5-cent mistake, I felt it. I knew it, and I remembered it to this day. And I had a competitor that was very wealthy and opened up 1 shop, 2 shop, 3 shop, 4 shop. And I went into one of them, and all of the things that were holding very wonderful, colorful items were black. And it swallowed all the color. But it was black, and I'm powerful and rich. And she opened 3 or 4 stores and then disappeared because she didn't feel the mistake. She had enough money that it didn't matter. So I think you're approaching it in a great way. Now, you also go to Africa a ton as well, right?
Yes, we have some deep connections there. My daughter and her husband are also building a home there at the present time. It'll be done sometime this year. I've spent a lot of time in Kenya and Tanzania. We've also worked in Malawi 3 times. We've worked in Madagascar 3 times. I started my work in Africa really in Namibia in 1999, where I was asked by a company and their government, to assist them in developing 2 gem cutting schools in their country. So between fall of 99 and spring of 21, I spent off and on 4 or 5 different trips, spending 3 to 4 weeks at a time there, helping them get organized and figure out what they need, because they want to start marketing their own gemstones instead of just selling the rough.
Right.
So that was my process.
Which is a really cool thing to help people with, that where you're helping the people in a country learn how to take their value. We just had some customers in here, and I was saying, a $300 piece of, and you're better at this, so you correct me. I was saying that a $300 piece of sapphire rough, when you cut it, is going to sell for minimum $3,000 up to $5,000. Is that somewhere in the range of reality?
Well, it's in the ballpark.
If you
but
do a good job.
yeah, if you do a good job, it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. I would say, as an example, this past week I cut a piece of rough that I bought in Tanzania, a piece of zircon. It was maybe a 5.5 gram piece of rough. I probably spent $175 on it. And in the industry, that's going to price out going to a store at probably $1,200 or $1,400. That's pretty good markup. That's not normal. Now, granted, I put my time into it.
Yep.
You know, if I would have given it to another cutter and have somebody charge me $200 or $300 to cut the stone, that takes some of that margin away. But still, there's enough there for everybody to make a living.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, if you've seen Roger, if you follow him on Facebook, I like every post I see of yours, because he really posts stones. He doesn't. I post BS, about food and everything, every random thing. He posts a stone, and number one, you're a good photographer. You got the photography figured out. That's a piece of the puzzle. But when you look at the symmetry, the polish, it's all there.
Well, I think some of these things just take a lot of practice. I'm on my 4th Canon camera. The other 3 were good cameras for what they were, but they weren't top notch. And this isn't even an expensive camera in the scheme of life. And I have 22,000 photos I've taken with this camera already.
Wow.
So that's a lot of, obviously I didn't keep them all, but I have it now, so there's kind of down to a science. Right. I know which way I'm going to turn it and how I'm going to angle it. I have the light set up. I've got a light box that I built myself, not complicated or exotic or anything, but enough to get the job done and to be efficient with my time.
Yeah, I'm just always impressed when I see your stones.
Well, thank you.
Like I say, with the photography and the stone itself. But I just want to, Roger, now, and then perhaps it was you with your daughter, because I know your daughter is big time on this, runs an organization called Gem Legacy. And I don't think you don't blow your own horn enough on that. You mention it and you promote it here and there, but my wife comes from the nonprofit world, so I see the window into all of it, the boards, all of it, the corruption in some ways, and then great work in others. And what I love about Gem Legacy is it's not just like, here's a big wad of money, because that's just going to disappear. It's here are tools, here is training, here is sending a kid to school. Those are tangible things that change people's lives. And because it's not a big wad of money, it reduces the chances for corruption and things just falling off the table. So hats off to you. And then now tell us, how did Gem Legacy start? Tell us about your daughter's role in that, and then where you are and where you're headed.
It started on my first trip to Namibia. I was at a mining site. It was a tourmaline mine.
Now, about what year?
2001.
Oh, so quite a while.
So yeah, okay. So in 2001, I was visiting the New Schwaben tourmaline mine, which produced all the really intense lagoon-like colors that you see out now.
Really expensive.
Yes, but back then it wasn't expensive, but now it is. So I'm visiting the mine, and there was 22 huts that were built along the road next to how you enter the property. And each one of those, it was black plastic over wood or maybe some metal along the way. Yep. And inside, they were shielding themselves from the sun and the rain. And inside, it'd be a family with 1, 2, 3, or even 4 kids. Yep. So I still had about $500 left in my pocket. I was flying home the next day. So I went and visited each one of them, and they're pulling all these rocks out of their in their skirt kind of thing. And putting them on their hands. I would pick one. I would buy one from each one and give them like $15 or $25, whatever it was, just enough to get by, because I felt guilty. Like, how come someone isn't coming along like me and doing this like all the time?
Right.
So obviously their husbands aren't doing that well, because they're living like as poorly as they probably could. Almost every one of those husbands was actually a farmer who happened to be in the area, and someone called and said, "Can you come help me at my mine?" And so they're farming for probably 6 months of the year, and then they're working at the guy's mine for 6 months of the year. Mm-hmm. And they're maybe making, I'm guessing, but probably $5 to $7 a day for their work. This is not big money. Right. So that's kind of how the mindset began. And then when I went back working in East Africa in 2009, 10, 11, we would visit mining areas. And back then, At that point in time, you could actually buy from a miner. You can't do that now. But we would stop and visit, and then there'd be like a little shop along the way. So we would buy trinkets and stuff, made sure that we spent money there and help their economy, the very local economy,
Right.
without, even though they weren't gem-related materials, I felt like I had to give back something, and that was the way to do it, because I didn't want to be handing out cash. I wanted them to have the experience that they actually earned it, because there's a difference in how people react to that.
Yep.
And then after we worked on the film, Sharing the Rough, that was in January 2014, we just saw a lot of, because we dug deeper and because we recorded so much of it, we saw so many scenarios where people just weren't doing well. So I'd come back. I went back actually 2 other times in 2014 for other projects I was working on. And then in 2015, I had a group of maybe 8 or 10 people with me, all of them in the gem trade.
So Roger does trips.
Yes.
Right? Usually you take people over there. So go ahead.
Yeah. So we were going to be visiting a bunch of mining areas, and so we're seeing how poorly they're living. And so what I convinced everybody is that if we're going to go visit a mine, how about we stop and buy bags of food for them? Not cooked food, but rice and beans and that sort of thing, and cooking oil and sugar, tea and salt. And so we did that to every place we went. We probably spent, everybody pitched in $10, and then we went and spent maybe $80 or $100 at each place we stopped. We typically visit like 3 mines in a day. So that kind of like was the next level of where I was going. And then in 2016, I had a really large group with me. There was actually 21 people.
Wow.
It's the largest group I've ever traveled with.
And you have hair left.
Barely.
Because traveling with a group, have you ever had somebody forget their passport?
We've had them forget things, but not passport.
Well, good. That's good.
That
That's a
would be
record.
like the worst case scenario.
Indeed.
So, but we did a lot of coaching ahead of time before they got on the trip, so that people were prepared for what they're going to see and experience, and how to go about doing what we do and do it legally and all that. So on that trip, there was a marketing guy on the trip. His wife was the jeweler, and he was in marketing, and he had an iPad with him, and he's talking with the rest of the participants of the group while I wasn't around, and said, Roger and Ginger are doing all these things to contribute back, and we've been pitching in too, because that's what we chose to do. They said, why don't we just form a nonprofit for them? So they tossed around a bunch of names, and they mocked up some artistry on his iPad and put the names in there, and that's kind of how it started. So they all pitched in, between the group, they pitched in $2,000, so we would be able to use that fund to actually do the paperwork back in the United States to actually create a 501c3 nonprofit.
Yep.
So that's kind of how that got rolling. And that we didn't actually fully formulate until August of 2018. And then Ginger and I, we pitched in our own funds to make it ended up costing close to $5,000 to do this. So we got the thing started, and we got it up and rolling, and then people had been wanting to send money to contribute to some of the causes that we had come up against. But we didn't want to take the money without having like a legal checking account and banking account for all this. So between August and December, we took in like $35,000.
Wow, that's impressive.
And that's from like 16 or 18 people.
Yeah.
And I learned something new about nonprofits, is that if you have a small nonprofit, we thought, well, we probably won't even take in $25,000 a year. So our attorney tells us, well, if you're only going to take in under 25, you can be this kind of nonprofit. Right. He said, but if you're going to do over that, you have to be this kind of nonprofit.
Yep.
So we realized we had to restructure our document, went to the government for April 15th the following year before that happened. So anyway, that first year, I think we took in maybe $180,000. I don't know if it's the exact number. I couldn't tell you that.
Very impressive.
So early on, we were very hands-on. We enrolled people to be on the board of directors with us because we didn't want to be doing it ourselves. Plus, you run out of your own ideas.
Yeah.
You need to have help from other people.
Yeah.
And so Rachel volunteered to be the executive director, and she did this without pay, in addition to working with us. So for the first 4 years, she didn't receive any income. It was all pro bono.
Yep.
We paid for the lawyers and the accountants and that kind of stuff out of our own pocket instead of having a combined gem legacy. In fact, for the first 4 years, all the contributions that came in all went out to a project.
Wow.
So
That's people say, well, 92%, that's 100%.
but that's what we covered all the back end
Right.
expenses
Right,
on being able
right.
to do that.
Yeah.
And then we realized we're burning out Rachel. We need to have her be effective with the company.
Yeah.
And so she's still participating heavily with Gem Legacy, but we actually just this past year hired Bernadette Peters from South Carolina. She's actually the executive director and doing all the daily hands-on kind of process that needs to happen.
Nice.
And now we have an advisory board. We have a board of directors with there's 6 of us, and then we have an advisory board that I think we have 24 people on it, maybe 26.
Wow.
So people from Jeweler Circular Keystone, the JCK show, AGTA, members of AGTA, and numerous vendors to the trade. And so we have a group of people that we can toss ideas to and have them give us feedback on what to do. So it's not just our own ideas.
And this takes, that whole narrative of ethical sourcing that we just, it's like a welcome mat. I feel like it's just worn out, that people just throw it out there. Oh, these are ethically mined and these are ethically sourced. And ethics isn't a line where you say, well, over here is and this isn't. It's a spectrum. And this takes it to another level where instead of just paying the price that will help support people, it goes beyond that. Because those local economies, the mine owners, the government, you have a lot of moving parts in the gem trade. And so by you coming in as like an extra layer of like what I've seen, bringing actual tools that miners can use that are brand new and in good shape, and sending kids to school so that they can work in a mine and do administration, and it brings up the whole community.
Well, the children programs, like there's a school in northern Tanzania, very close to the Kenya border, called Kidarini. It was about when I first visited there in 2014, there was 103 kids going to school, and now there's over 900.
Wow.
So we went from one building. We didn't pay the government built the buildings. They went from one building to now they have 5 buildings. They have a water tower. They built new bathrooms. They built teacher housing. It's so much more advanced. I haven't been back to see it for the last couple of years, but this is where one company fell in love with the idea of feeding the kids, so they get a breakfast and lunch.
Wow.
So one company is actually handling all of that.
Can you say the company? Can you mention it?
It's Brilliant Earth.
Brilliant Earth. Wow.
In San Francisco.
That's amazing.
So, and then we have other companies who have stepped in and handled other things. Actually, our most popular, what I find, most popular thing that people are attracted to is that there's a thing we do with toolkits for miners, which you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So we have a team of 3 people that go and visit a mining operation, and they determine what the needs are for that mine. If that mine is owned by a major investor, we don't mess with that mine because they already have funds coming in. They go to mines that are owned like a cooperative, like maybe four families together own the mine. They don't have funding. They're doing it day by day, and they're working on the mine when they're not doing farming. So our 2 guys, and sometimes 3 guys, there's 1 in Tanzania and 2 on the Kenyan side. So they'll actually go visit the mine. Sometimes they visit 2 or 3 mines in a day. But I think they have visited, in 1 year, they visited 51 different mines to find out whether they were valid enough that we could be the people supporting them, that Gem Legacy could be the ones supporting them. And so they come back and give us the report, and sometimes the mines aren't qualified, if you will.
Right. And that's another, with the nonprofit world, to have people on the ground visiting and really looking at what's going on and determining which parties are going to benefit.
Well, they go and visit a mine. They determine what the needs are for that mine. They come back and then acquire all the products wherever they are. Then they make another trip out and deliver all that to the mine.
Wow.
So it's like, for those guys, the miners, it's a party.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you guys actually came through.
Right.
You gave us what we asked for.
Right.
Because some mines, maybe it's just shovels. Other mines, like you might have people working together. They're working in an area where they need to do the sifting of the materials. Mm-hmm. If they have to do sifting, they're going to be building a sieve to be able to do that with. Yep. Well, if they work in an area where it's very sandy, that's one kind of sieve. So they will custom build the sieve for the area that these guys are working in. Wow. We don't do explosives, though. That's one thing we've been staying away from.
I think that's why.
I think it's just too risky. So
that's really cool. Now, what about safety equipment?
You know, we've been through a lot of questions with our board about how to handle the safety equipment, but even there are some mines that requested to have safety helmets just for them because of what their mine is like.
Yep.
But the guys that are digging open pit where there isn't anything above them other than maybe a tree, well, those guys don't want helmets. So, okay, we considered doing boots. Well, most of the guys don't like wearing boots when they're working, and they have told us so.
And you
So
see some of the stuff they wear.
it's unbelievable.
It just mind blowing.
I know.
Like I've seen people working in flip flops, and
Well, that is actually their footwear of choice.
I
Is the
get you.
flip-flop.
I hear you.
Even though in my mind I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how can you do that? Because I wear boots when I'm in my shop working because I might drop something.
Yeah.
But they don't do that. You know,
Yeah.
I wear boots like I have on here. But if I was to donate them to them, they probably wouldn't even wear them. You know what they would
They'd sell them.
They would go and sell them.
yeah. And that's again, just there's they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That again, sending money, sending stuff that you think they need, rather than what the approach that Gem Legacy is taking is let's send people in with eyes and look and see what does this operation need versus another.
Well, if you look at obviously Rachel's been there. She stays there for 5 months of the year, and then she's in the U.S. for 7 months. That's how she's been working this out. And her husband is Tanzanian, and he grew up there. So when they go to visit a mine as well, not just with the two guys that are working on their behalf, Bjorn, he knows the questions to ask because he's been digging himself.
Right.
His dad first started taking him to the mine when he was 16.
Yep.
And he was bugging his dad for 4 or 5 years to let me come and visit the mine with your dad. He said, no. So there was something he had to overcome. I don't recall what it was at the moment, but when he turned 16, then he was able to come and visit the mine and actually go inside. But their mine is very, I want to say it's a mechanized, but
more technologically
it's more
advanced.
mechanized than most mines,
Right.
and they built the structure around to protect the area so they don't have cave-ins. In fact, they seldom have cave-ins in the Maryland area anyway. And they're using explosives. They do an explosive day, then they let all the particles clear from where you're going to be breathing.
Yep.
Then they go back down. Typically, there's a 3 to 4 hour window before that happens.
Yep.
And now they've developed a technique on protecting the miners because they don't want them breathing the dust. So they have this thing where they spray the walls with a water substance, and it reduces how much dust is in the air, and so it reduces these guys getting sick. So
that is just absolutely awesome. And I've met your Bjorn and your daughter both. They came to one of the events, and just nice as could be, and just so impressive. Such an impressive young couple that are mining and running Gen Legacy and just doing so much, so productive.
I do miss them a lot because. Talking on the phone, granted WhatsApp is like the greatest thing, but talking on the phone is not the same as like having them over for dinner. And
that's right.
It's just not the same. But I'm willing to forego all those in-person opportunities for the kind of things that they are doing there on our behalf. So, yeah.
Well, that's really awesome. That's really awesome. So, Roger Dery Gems. And I'm personally just more emphasizing Gem Legacy because of the work that it does and that I've seen myself and the effects that it has on real communities, real miners, real people is just fantastic. And I hope we can have more of these conversations. So Cutting Conversations with the Gem News Network. And we're going to have more fun. We're going to see a lot more of Roger over the next couple of weeks because we're in Tucson.
Yes,
and he's here slinging stones, teaching people. He's a phenomenal mentor. You go to faceting meetups. You were with Ron Snelling.
Yes,
at
and
his.
Michael Holmes, and we did one in Baltimore as well with their faceting guild. Yeah, it's been exciting here. I've had a great time.
Yeah, just a real mover and shaker in the faceting community. So thanks for coming to talk to us.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. So, peace.